Hello. I have returned after my month-long hiatus. That's what happens when you're in grad school. It was the end of my first year in graduate school, so there was just a lot to get done in that month, and I wanted to finish off strong. So my commentary on the news fell by the wayside. But summer now, got a little more free time. Although there's still always too much to do somehow. So I figured, what better way to get back into the groove than to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the situation in Israel, between Israel and Palestine. Although there's some good news on this front, I think. This is from Euro News. Spain, Ireland, and Norway announced they will recognize the state of Palestine. 3 European states, Spain, Ireland, and Norway, have announced they will formally recognize the Palestinian state 7 months after the Gaza war broke out. The highly symbolic move was coordinated between the 3 nations on Wednesday, following months of negotiation between a group of European countries willing to take the step. Speaking on Wednesday morning, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who had vowed to recognize Palestine by June, announced Spain would recognize the state of Palestine next Tuesday, the 28th of May. The time to move, quote, "The time to move from words to action has come," Sanchez told the Spanish House of Representatives, to tell the millions of Palestinians that are suffering that we stand with them, that there's hope, that and that despite the walls that are erected, the villages that are bombed, and illegal settlements that are built, the land and the identity of the Palestinians still exists. Irish Foreign Minister Michael Martin announced on social media platform X that Dublin's recognition would be official from the 28th of May, as the country moves in tandem with Spain. Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre also announced his country will formally recognize Palestine as a state earlier on Wednesday. There can't be peace without a Palestinian state, Støre told reporters in Ulsa. According to Euro News sources, Norway is likely to mimic both Spain and Ireland in making the official recognition effective from the 28th of May. 3 other UN members likely to follow suit. European Union member states Slovenia and Malta have also indicated that in recent weeks that they may recognize Palestinian statehood, claiming it is vital to bring peace to the region. Belgium is also likely to follow suit soon, but refraining from signing the March Declaration of Intent, as it currently holds the 6-month rotating presidency of the Council of the UN, responsible for overseeing its work, and therefore likely restricted from signing such declarations. Well, how is Israel responding to this? The move is opposed by Israel, no shocker there, which has claimed it will, quote, "fuel instability in the Middle East." Israel Katz, the country's foreign affairs minister, has recalled Israel's ambassadors to Ireland and Norway for consultations, and has warned Spain that similar steps will be taken. "I'm sending a clear and unequivocal message to Ireland and Norway. Israel will not remain silent in the face of those undermining its sovereignty and endangering its security," he wrote in a statement shared on X. "Today's decision sends a message to the Palestinians and the world. Terrorism pays," he also wrote, adding, "Israel will not remain silent. There will be further severe consequences." So, I mean, this kind of goes back to a video I made, had to be quite a few months ago now, in which the UK was signaling they are potentially interested in recognition of Palestinian statehood. And the more countries that do that, even, just symbolically, that's going to change the playing field. That's just going to change the direction in which the wind is blowing. And that could be what ends up saving some Palestinian lives. I mean, that's not a short-term solution for those that are dying and homeless and destitute, and without access to clean water. I mean, it's not a humanitarian solution, but it's a sign of potential political change. Because as far as I know, there's been very little. I don't know. I said as far as I know, there has been very little public interest in public talk in Palestinian statehood. I mean, you'll hear people, in the mainstream media talk about the need for a two-state solution, but it generally doesn't go any farther than rhetoric. And it's one thing to say publicly, oh, I support a Palestinian, I support a two-state solution. It's another thing altogether. I think to publicly declare statehood. Again, it is symbolic, so that's important to keep in mind. But it is pretty heartening, because public opinion seems to be changing, and that's pretty remarkable. At one time, I would not have thought that countries would be doing this. I wouldn't have thought, as I've said before in videos, that so many people would go out in the street, so many students, professors. There was a local professor here who was, I think, literally, I forget if his arm was broken or his ribs were broken by a policeman who was breaking up a pro-Palestinian protest. But I mean, people are, committing themselves to pro-Palestinian activism in such a heartfelt way. And now, again, to see some European countries standing up and saying, no, we are going to officially recognize Palestinian statehood. That is, I think, a very good sign. Can only go so far without actual change, without actual substantial changes in behavior to those in positions of power. But it's not impossible in my scheme of things anyway, that, if public opinion just becomes so against Israel, if Israel becomes so alienated from, the global community, if Israel just becomes too much of a hot button issue, you could see the U.S. dropping Israel, or maybe more moderately putting pressure on Israel to actually make changes, and not sort of a lot of the fake pressure that Biden has been. He going back to rhetoric. Biden will criticize Israel publicly, and make Netanyahu angry because Netanyahu's a little baby, but not really actually challenge Israel in any substantive way, not really, try to get them to change their policy. But the more countries that recognize Palestinian statehood, eventually the U.S. might just have to give in. I mean, the U.S. has been known to turn on former allies before. That's not unprecedented. And so, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm cautious. I think I've said this before. I'm cautiously optimistic. Like I said, I think 10 years ago, you wouldn't have seen European countries doing this. And Israel is just, it's damaged its public opinion. It's damaged its image in the public so thoroughly through its actions, and its actions, its policy just isn't sustainable. I don't think. I mean, even Bibi is having trouble, losing power, or excuse me, he's having trouble staying in power. If when the war does finally end, I think he's done. I think he's finished. I think he's, gonna see have to see himself out. So there's internal, political struggle in Israel, in the Israeli government. I mean, there are politicians and ministers that are far more radical than Netanyahu, trying to, get their way. There are pro-Palestinian protests in Israel. And just the amount of resources that are going towards this campaign. I just don't think Israel can keep it up forever. I don't see how they can. I mean, and Israel's, not going to go down without a fight. And, as with this story, you see, they pulled, diplomats from these countries, or ambassadors, excuse me, from these countries, because, Israel always throws a hissy fit whenever something like this happens. Israel, will not tolerate criticism of its treatment of the Palestinians, ever. So it further breakdown of relations between these countries, further Israel is potentially isolating itself. I mean, it's becoming an international pariah. Countries want nothing to do with Israel. Various of America's sort of foes, enemies, whatever you want to call them. In public, at least, they're throwing their hats in the ring with the Palestinian causes. I mean, you don't have to take them seriously. I'm sure many of them are just doing it out of anti-American sentiment, and in the hopes of undermining America's power in the geopolitical sphere. But long story short, it's just that public opinion isn't undergoing a huge shift, and while it's not a solution to save and protect people this very moment, I think it's a sign that maybe, just maybe, Israel can't keep this up forever, and we are heading in the direction of peace and protection for the Palestinians, because they're not going to have that protection without official statehood. When when people don't have statehood, they don't have human rights. Basically, that's you read Hannah Arendt. She talks about this. The Jews were stateless. What happened to the Jews in the 20th century? A similar thing is happening here with the Palestinians. No statehood, no state recognition, no human rights. So the need for the state the state recognition is necessary to protect the human rights. And it looks like there could be some positive goings on. We just have to keep doing what we're doing, keep protesting, and see what happens next.